The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walked this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. With that, we will call this regular council meeting for November 5th, 2024 to order. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? Administration, any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Council will be looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. And just as note, our digital voting system is down today. We will be voting by hand for all of our votes this evening. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move that we accept the agenda as presented for November 5th, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Race. And Council, the motion on the floor is that Council adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. Councillors, all in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. That will take us to section 3 of the agenda and council minutes for adoption. Councillors? Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the regular council minutes for October 15th, 2024, the organizational meeting minutes for October 15th, 2024, and the committee of the whole minutes for October 22nd, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, the motion on the floor is that council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting October 5th, 2024, the organizational meeting October 15th, 2024, and the committee of the whole meeting October 22nd, 2024. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. It will take us to section 4 of the agenda this evening, Citizens Minute with Council. Minute with Council provides an opportunity where residents can address council regarding issues, events, celebrations, or concerns. To ensure a constructive and welcoming environment, please adhere to the following guidelines. Keep your remarks concise, limited to 1 minute. Address the chair of the meeting when speaking to council. Avoid asking questions as this is not a Q&A session, and maintain a respectful tone and language. First up for Minute with Council this evening, we have Mr. Cole Gorner. Cole?
Good.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor and Hinton Town Council, my name is Cole Gorner, and I reside at 146 Fuller Place. I wish to thank you and the rest of Hinton Town Council for voting to commission administration to develop a pickleball court sound reduction report for the pickleball courts at Gerard Redmond School. I also wish to thank administration for reaching out and considering some of my suggestions when developing that report. Mr. Mayor, I can't stress enough that without the sound barriers being installed, there will be not enough material change to the current noise issue at the courts, as the majority of the pickleball community has already been sticking to the suggested 9 to 9 operating hours. The intent behind assigning operating hours was to be used in conjunction with the installation of the sound barriers, as the barriers are the most important aspect. I was planning on inviting some of my neighbors to come and speak at this meeting, but unfortunately I was not given enough time to plan ahead. I did, however, submit a letter to council on October 29th, 2024, that I and my neighbors signed asking for sound mitigation and set operating times. Mr. Mayor and the Hinton Town Council, sound mitigation has been recognized by experts as a critical aspect of the pickleball court project, which helps facilitate a balance between a citizen's opportunity to enjoy the facility and the adjacent residents' right to enjoy a reasonable level of peace and quiet. For the sake of our mental health and the livability of our neighborhood, I urge you to do the right thing and finish the project at Gerard Redmond and install the appropriate sound barriers. Thank you for your consideration and your continued efforts in serving this community.
Thank you, Mr. Gorner. Next up for a Minute with Council this evening, we have Mr. Curtis Anderson.
All right. Hello, council. My name is Curtis Anderson, and I'm a local realtor and property manager. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I left the last meeting and really tried to understand the why behind the proposed cap. From my perspective, council pertaining to short-term rentals, if that's not clear. From my perspective, council saying that short-term rentals are impacting the housing market now, but the proposed caps are preventing things from getting worse in the future as opposed to maybe solving things now. So I have two proposed solutions that I've been thinking of over the last couple of weeks that in tandem could potentially solve the problem you want to fix while making most people happy. First, I'd recommend a healthy cap somewhere around 200 to allow for modest growth, which will allow you to see if this problem is truly a problem, but also prevents it from getting out of hand in the future. Second, and most important, I'd recommend putting a cap per person to one standalone short-term rental per person. I know of several people, some out-of-town owners who own several short-term rentals in town, a lot of which are in that $400,000 price point for homes. I think by putting in a cap of one per person, which would impact my business as a short-term rental property manager. So maybe not the best advice for me to be giving, but given what you guys have been saying and your concerns, I think this would put an immediate solution in place where we might see more homes on the market, which would either bring up those homes for sale for families to buy, which those families are maybe in our rental pool right now, which would alleviate those rentals, or maybe those homes become long-term rentals. So I think that would maybe help the now, and then put that in tandem with a healthy cap that allows for us to see a bit of growth and kind of keep an eye on the problem, but not let it get out of hand in the future. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That will take us to section 5 of our agenda this evening, the public hearing, and section 5.1, the public hearing for bylaw number 108820. The following public hearing is held pursuant to section 692 of the Municipal Government Act, being chapter M26 RSA 2000 and amendments thereto. The following rules of conduct will be followed during this public hearing. Presentations should be brief and to the point. The order of presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, and any other persons deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. I hereby declare the public hearing relating to the bylaw open. Secretary?
The purpose of the proposed bylaw number 1088-20 is to enable the implementation of tiny homes on parcels where a principal dwelling already exists, as shown in attachment 1. The first reading was given to bylaw number 1088-20 on October 15th, 2024. Notice of this public hearing was advertised consecutively in the Hinton Voice newspaper on October 24th and 31st, 2024, as well as advertised on the Town of Hinton website, CivicSend, and Facebook.
Are there any late written submissions to bylaw number 1088 TAC 20?
No.
Thank you, Secretary. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in favor of bylaw number 1088 TAC 20? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to bylaw number 1088 TAC 20? Is there anyone present who is deemed to be affected by bylaw number 1088 TAC 20 and wishes to speak? Do the councillors have any further questions? Do the councillors require any further information? If not, I will accept a motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council close amending bylaw number 1088-20 public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, the motion on the floor is that council close the public hearing relating to bylaw number 1088 TAC 20. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. I hereby declare the public hearing related to bylaw number 1088 TAC 20 closed. And that will take us to items or section 6 of our agenda, action items, and item 6.1, land use bylaw amendment number 1088 TAC 20, tiny homes. See open ask?
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn this over to Ms. Walker.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. So this evening, our administration is looking for second and third reading on bylaw amendment 1088-20 to implement tiny homes into our larger lot districts where there is already a principal dwelling existing. There is a cap of 60 meters squared on the size of the tiny home, and we have our regulations in the bylaw will outline regulations and size and where they can be and can't be and all the stuff related to that. And yeah, so we're just looking for a second, third reading this evening. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council give land use bylaw number 1088-20 second reading as presented. And I'll just speak to it now very briefly. I appreciate the work from administration on this particular file. This is something as a council with our strategic plan that we've targeted is really innovative strategies as it relates to dwellings. I'm really interested to see how this plays out in our community should it pass through will of council. I guess really my only question for administration is, should this successfully move forward tonight, does this in any way help inform the possibility for the municipality to look at a wider use of tiny homes as their own principal residence on a given lot of land in the future?
See open ask?
Through the mayor, members of council, I can answer that. So with this bylaw amendment, one thing that it does is it structures the definition so we can implement it in really what would probably be a DC district. So anytime that there's a tiny home, we'll say village, we haven't actually specified specific zonings that it would be conducive for, but by how we structured the bylaw, that we would be able to consider these proposals and take a look at specific parcels of land when these opportunities do arise to look at approving those, likely again through DC districts.
Perfect.
Thank you. See open ask. Councillor Magoon. follow up?
Yeah, no, not at all. Just my appreciation to administration, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just wondering, do we have the proper resources in place to ensure that all the inspections are going to be made? The electrical, every inspection that needs to be made, do we have the people who are able to do it?
See open ask.
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, the tiny homes would be subject to the same codes and obligations that all homes would. So it would go through our regular process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Thank you, see open ask. Council, the motion on the floor is that council give the land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 20 second reading as presented. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council give the land use bylaw number 1088-20 third reading as presented. And if I can quickly speak to it, of the same thought that Councillor Magoon had, I think this is the first step. And to administration mentioning the opportunities that this could have in the future for its own area is fantastic. I think this is a solution possibly for some of our housing shortages in our communities. But also it's also an opportunity for revenue as well in residents, because that's part of it too, for rentals and things like that. So I'm looking forward to this in the hopes that we can see, maybe a look at, smaller homes, tiny homes. I think the one thing that I want to stress is when we hear tiny homes, sometimes I think we think of those homes that we see on TV being built. These particular ones are not on wheels. They are, they are structures, but, just so people are aware of that, because I think that sometimes goes along with that thought of tiny homes. So, but I'm full in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Taylor.
Just a correction, these can be on wheels as long as they're supported by peers. That's what I read in the bylaw. Is that correct?
Ms. Walker?
Yes, thank you through to Councillor Taylor. That is correct. Typically, they would
Thank you.
come in and be put on a foundation and then have the wheels or any kind of running gear or anything like that would be removed. And then they would also be parged and everything like a normal structure would be.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is the council give the land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 20 third reading as presented. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 6.1 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.2, FCSS Level of Service Policy, CS 7202. CAO Panasic.
So thank you, Mayor. I will turn this over to Ms. Bouchard.
Ms. Bouchard.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This report is before Council following the direction from Committee of the Whole on October 22nd, 2024. That committee referred the draft FCSS Level of Service Policy, CS 7202, to a future Council meeting for decision. At Committee of the Whole on October 22nd, 2024, Administration reported to Council in seeking direction to formalize a Hinton FCSS Level of Service with consideration of the main takeaways and recommendations in Y Station's report, as well as additional resources provided by administration. One of the three main takeaways Y Station noted is that Hinton is offering a comparable number and variety of programs and services to many of the other municipalities, each tailored to the unique needs of their respective communities. The report proposed no changes to the current level of service and developed their first recommendation to consider approving the level of service as a baseline. With that, administration is requesting that Council formally adopt the level of service offered by the municipality for family and community support services as outlined in policy CS 7202. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bouchard. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask you about recommendation number 2, and that's on page 32 of 123. Increase transparency regarding how decisions are made when considering new program adoptions and how new programs are balanced through fiscally responsible cuts. So how do you plan on presenting that transparency, and to whom?
Ms. Bouchard.
Thank you through to the mayor and members of council. So through a variety of reasons, there was a motion that came out of committee on October 22nd. So that'd be part of the strategic planning process, and anything that would be outside of our operating budget that would increase or decrease our level of service, which would then need to be taken to council for decision.
Councillor Race, follow up.
I do have one more question. In this policy, I only saw council mentioned once, just once, kind of in passing. So are we not your board? Are we not, what are we to FCSS? Us as council?
Ms. Bouchard.
Thank you through to the members, mayor and members of council. So we report directly to council. So we don't have an advisory board. We report directly to council.
And is it, do you report like once a year or twice a year? Or is there anything to say how many times you would want to come before council?
Ms. Bouchard?
Through to the mayor and members of council. So we would report to council like any other departments in the town. So whether it's changing the level of service, increase, decrease in the budget, any other requests, we would report to council formally.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Thank you, Ms. Bouchard. Councillor Taylor?
Just to follow up, increased transparency with new programs, he indicated that that would come to council or something. Isn't that always the case? Has that not always been the case? If you have a new program that requires Town of Hinton funding, then that would have to come to council, and that's always been the case. If you have a new program maybe that you got a grant for, or you can do on a revenue neutral basis, you don't necessarily have to come to council for that. Is that correct?
CEO Panasic, do you want to take that one?
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, that's correct. So any increase to the budget through programming, that's a council decision typically made through the budgetary process. If there's a structural change in the level of service or reconfiguration of the service, those are all council decisions. We do have, FCSS is a little bit unique in that there's always a little bit of fluctuation in the service delivery, just given a lot of smaller program opportunities through provincial or alternative funding that FCSS is always working on and always looking at bringing forward where it makes sense. But the service delivery as a core, that's actually what we're doing today is we're setting that as council. So any structural or ongoing changes to this program, that'll be a policy, that should be a policy decision. That will be actually changing the policy we're speaking about today, or any increase in the financial or the cost of any program. That would be a budgetary decision at the budget time.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councillor Hawes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council approve the FCSS level of service policy CS 7202. If I can quickly speak to it. I think in the beginning, I was a little bit reluctant in doing the comparison study. However, with that in mind, realizing that, as the contractor said, it's apples to oranges to pencils to staplers. But I think that based on that analysis, some very important recommendations were brought forward. One that also includes the strategic planning between administration and council in the future, to understand, the depths of the programs, to have some understanding of that. Also some direction as well. I think that those are some valuable things that were brought forward. Now, I realize that some of these recommendations are administrative in nature, but I think through that process, my understanding from our committee, the whole discussion is that all these recommendations will be brought to that table for strategic planning. So with that, I'm comfortable moving forward with the level of service as is, with the future for strategic planning. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, the motion on the floor is the council approve the FCSS level of service policy CS 7202. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. I can't support this policy the way it's currently written without revision. This policy supports a level of service that sustains over $400,000 level of funding higher than the provincial government 80-20 match program. And that's a concern to me because the taxpayers in this town, at least the lower income ones and the businesses that went through COVID and the Jasper fire, are facing a 20.5% increase in utility fees for a single family home. And I was just given a budget the other day with a 9.8% potential tax increase. So for me to approve a policy that sustains indefinitely into the future a 400 plus increase over the match level of funding that the provincial government indicated was necessary for us to run is difficult to reconciliate until I can understand exactly why we have that 400,000 overage over what the provincial government wanted to provide. And my reading of the report is different than your reading of the report. My reading of the report is that we have 35 core programs versus 20 for comparative communities. My reading of the report indicates that even the table that we left in the report, because the most unfavorable table was taken out, indicates that our expenses exceed revenues by 46 versus 20%. And when I asked the consultant that put together the report whether or not we are undertaking provincial overreach over and above what some of the comparator communities have, they indicated yes. And that's certainly something I would want to undertake before I go into the current fiscal situation that we face starting this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And of course, for anyone watching, I'll remind and note that council has not yet received a draft budget. That is coming to a future committee of the whole meeting, but we have received documentation for the budget workshops taking place in the committee room tomorrow and Thursday. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really just a question for administration. There's nothing, please correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing to prevent council through the budgetary process, though, of taking a core level of service and then over the budgetary process, if it's deemed the will of council, to look at specific elements of programming and to work with administration to scale things back, if that's what the budget requires in a given year. That would be a fair assumption, yeah?
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay. For myself, I'd be happy to look at any potential amendments to the motion if there's a concern about the level of service and how it relates to budget in a given year. But given the motion on the floor right now, I'm happy to support it. I think we have a number of programs in town that the community they have come to rely on and deem to be important. And it's still within the purview of council to strategically look at each budgetary year, within its own given context. So I'm happy to support the motion as it stands on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I guess what I'm weighing is I realize that, there's a cost to have these programs, but what's the cost to not have these programs to our community members and to our families? A lot of what I understand to be that is the over and above that 440,000 is different. For example, Hinton Kids for Success program that doesn't fall into the government's budgeting part. Parents rely on that. Discovery Camp, they rely on that summer. If we don't have these types of programs, then what added extra cost might that also put on our citizens as well? And also, do we have the capacity with our current, without having programs such as that? So I'm weighing, what is the needs of our community? We've learned over time that these needs are needed for our families and our communities. And it's based a lot on the fact that they're utilized, and waiting periods are also part of those programs. So I realize it costs money, but it also, I think, saves a lot of stress and a lot of other factors that families face day to day as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the recommendations from the report that I think is really important for the community and transparency, though, in this case, and it's worth noting, is the back and forth collaboration strategically between council, who acts essentially as a board of directors of SCSS, and our management staff that we rely on to deliver those programs. I think that's an important thing for the community to be aware of, and how that plays out moving forward, so that we can have a better understanding as councillors of what programming might be essential given the data that administration's receiving, and relaying that to the community or working with administration to communicate the needs that we're hearing from the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Just for anybody who's listening, I did make a motion to modify the policy last week. I was unsuccessful with that, so I don't want to waste council's time with that motion. And I do respect Councillor Hawes's opinion on how to help people, but there are two ways to help people. One is with a direct handout, and the other way is by helping them help themselves. And you can help them by helping themselves by keeping taxes and fee increases low, and thereby help them. And especially when we're spending on social spending in this town and other spending related to civic agencies and this $400,000, we're spending $1.5 million. That would go a long ways towards reducing that 9.8% or that 20.5% in the utility fee increases if we weren't spending that level. And thereby we'd be helping people to help themselves. So it's how you help people. I think that we have a basic difference in philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And once again, for those watching, I'm going to remind people that the utility rate increase is looking at a full cost recovery system for our utilities where utility users pay only for the utility system. And it does not have a bearing on our funding of social programs in the community. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. I think that as we look at this, I do feel that through the existing channels of having the approvals coming to council for changes in levels of service, if that's plus or minus, you know, I think that we are prepared or we are covered from that end of things if that's coming back to us. But I think that you can't just look at FCSS from a dollars and cents perspective. It's a social program that's needed by our community. You think of the impact on families. If there was no discovery camp, if there was no after school care, some people could not work and they could not have that second income in their families. So there is a trade-off to these programs. I think the comparisons were done well. And again, as I said in committee, I think every community, you could take the same program. They're going to have different people with different needs, with different levels, different usages. And so that's what makes the report a little hard, because it isn't just all the exact same comparisons. But I think that if we as a council want to have more input or whatever that looks like, if we're acting as Councillor Magoon said, the board of FCSS, in theory, then I think that's something that we flush out through the strategic planning process, which we've already made a motion on. So if we want to be more involved in some of the nitty gritty things or whatever that in depth looks like without stepping out of our governance role, then I think that's something that we sit down and really give a good look at through that strategic planning process in conjunction with FCSS to see what's appropriate for us to be weighing in on or not. So I'm happy to support the motion as it stands right now, because I think with that upcoming and some of the other things that we already have in place, we're in a good position to move ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Taylor.
I have to disagree with the mayor that the social funding and the utility fee increase aren't interrelated. The utility fee increase is a $2.8 million per year increase in utility fees, which is the equivalent of a 20.5% tax increase. So we don't have to make that a $2.8 million increase if we could reduce the $1.5 million over here. So I see them as connected and not entirely disconnected. The ultimate point is that the taxpayer in this town faces a punch over here from the utility increase of 2.8, and then the tax increases of 9.8 over here. And I see them as interconnected, because if you take less over here, you can take less over here. So to say that they're disconnected, I don't think is not the way I see it. Thanks. And
thank you, Councillor Taylor. I will correct your facts there. However, the conversations the council has had regarding utility fees are around a full cost recovery system whereby the utility user pays for the utility system. It does not take general tax revenues, and the general taxpayer is not the same rate payer as the utility rate payer. Not in every case. Yes, some of our homes, we pay property taxes and we pay utilities. However, the province of Alberta, in their properties, they pay utility rates. They do not pay property taxes. It's not the same person. It's not the same pot of money. And the two are not related in the discussions that this council has had. And I will not bring that back up for discussion. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? The council approve. Councillor Taylor? Point of order.
For us to have procedural fairness, it's important to follow the speaking order that the council speaks in. The mayor last meeting, we had a regular meeting, didn't follow the speaking order 3 times. And he's decided tonight not to follow the speaking order 3 times. This leads to procedural unfairness in that when somebody speaks and he disagrees with, he feels that it's within his right and free just to speak and correct them without following the established speaking order. This isn't the premise under which this council is set up. I would like to ask for a decision from council whether having the mayor, this isn't debatable, whether having the mayor follow the established speaking order is something that this council would prefer or not prefer, because I think it's a matter of fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And the mayor and the chair will now rule on your point of order. Stand by as I find us our reference. Sure. Council will take a 5-minute recess while I find us a good reference here. Thank you. Thank you. And we will return to our regular council meeting for November 5th, 2024 at 4:42 p.m. The issue on the floor at the moment is a point of order brought up by Councillor Taylor. The chair at this time will overrule the point of order pursuant to the Town of Hinton bylaw number 1153, bylaw of the Town of Hinton in the province of Alberta to regulate the proceedings of meetings of council, section 10, and most specifically section 10.2. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor. Oh, we have a point of order. Councillor Taylor.
I would like to go to a council vote on the issue of the mayor speaking out of the speaking order. I was still speaking when the mayor interrupted me and inserted himself in my place. That doesn't fit into any fair procedure that I'm aware of. How would you like that to happen to you? You should have at least waited for me to finish speaking. I would like you to vote on whether you think him interrupting me as a counselor is a fair procedure or not. And if you vote in favor, I would like to be allowed to continue speaking. Thank you. That's not a debatable motion.
That is correct, Councillor Taylor. Thank you. Council, the motion on the floor is that the decision of the chair be overruled. This is not debatable. Councillors, we will call the question. All in favor? And that motion is passed with Councillor Chambers and Mayor Nissen in opposition. The chair will now accept the vote of the majority of the members present, and the names of the members voting shall be recorded in the minutes. CEO Panasic, from my reading of the procedure bylaws, we continue on with the meeting as per, or is there something additional?
That's correct. And through the chair to members of council, part of the conversation may not have been entirely relevant to FCSS and the decision on the floor. So I would just ask that council be specific and speak to the motion that has been put forward related to FCSS level of service.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Council, the motion on the floor is that council approve the FCSS level of service policy CS 7202. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this motion. When I think of FCSS, that group of people, that division of our town touches every element of this town. Whether you're a baby, whether you're a senior, they're going to touch you. When I think of Discovery Camp, it's been in existence for 30 plus years. Hey, how many kids in town who went to Discovery Camp. Maybe Councilor Margoon. It is, there are just so many facets or parts of FCSS that are so important. The number of times I will go downtown, meet with a senior who needs something, and I can send them over to FCSS to take care of their aids for daily living. I just can't speak, more about how I want to advocate for FCSS. So I definitely will support this.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I just finish what I was saying, if you don't mind, thank you. No, the policy hardwires in a level of spending which is quite high at plus 400,000 over and above what we were spending. I was going to indicate that fits in with the that fits into the $1.5 million that we're spending on these social and other programs that could in fact be used to reduce this other level of spending. So I just wanted to add in the bit about the utility fee increase is quite a substantial increase. And if we didn't spend this much in area A, we could spend less in area B. The mayor is right. The intent is to cover it all at once on the utility fee increase, but because that's so substantial, that's quite a burden on the taxpayer, and there are other ways to do that. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is the council approve the FCSS level of service policy CS 7202. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried 6-1 with Councillor Taylor voting in opposition. All opposed? Councillor Taylor voting in opposition. Oh, hey, the voting came up. Are we back online somehow? No, I guess not. All right, Council, is there anything further for item 6.2 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.3, DR sound reduction at Gerard Redmond Pickleball Courts. CAO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor, through to the rest of council. I will turn this over to Ms. Way.
Ms. Way.
Good afternoon, council. This matter regarding Gerard Redmond Court sound reduction is returned to you today. Admin has prepared 3 options, one of which includes court closure time. So as you know, currently we don't have official closure times for our parks in Hinton. So this is specific only to those courts. We would also look at implementing a light timer similar to what you see at Erith Park to really signify the closure of that park and kind of eliminate encouragement to play. Further to that, signage would be installed. Option 2 includes a sound study to ensure that the sound reduction would be sufficient, and also includes the install of panels as previously presented to council. Option 3 includes adopting or accepting the model, the sound model that was presented by one of the residents at a previous council meeting, and using that model to install sound barriers as indicated in the report, hoping for some sound reduction for those adjacent to the field of play. I can take any questions at this time.
Councillor Magoon.
No questions. Just thank you for the report. And I'd like to start with council direct administration to prepare a CPP for pickleball sound reduction panels as summarized in option 2 for deliberation in budget 2025, pardon me. And just, I want to start there, Mr. Mayor, because I think that's potentially the one that will be the most up for debate. For myself, I want to start by thanking our community members in this point. Mr. Gorner, thanks for being a positive influence in the process. This has been obviously a difficult subject for you and your neighbors, but to approach it with just such a maturity in saying that, you know, this is a situation that we find to be untenable, but let's do the math. Let's go, let's look for facts, and let's try to sway council. I appreciate that because that's a rarity. Often we have a lot of emotionally based decision making, you know, because people get, you know, very fired up one way or the other about various things that happened in the community. So for myself as a counselor, I appreciate that process. And I'm certainly swayed by it. This is one of those things where in looking at the impact that pickleball has had on the community, especially in your area, you know, a tennis court that was never designed for pickleball, I think it's incumbent on the town to do more, to try and do what we can to improve that standard of living for yourselves and for your neighbors. So I'm hoping that council will, at the very least, support this option so that it can make it to the budget potentially to get passed in the 2025 budgetary year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to prepare a CPP for pickleball sound reduction panels as summarized in option 2 for deliberation in budget 2025. Councillor Taylor.
I support the recommended action too, and I do thank you for your clarification that that goes hand in hand with the reduction panels. They are part of a package. So if the other one comes to us in the budget, which I'm pretty sure it will, we've got to seriously consider that as well as this. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to confirm too, we've never actually done a study in that area on the sound barrier. Is that correct?
Ms. Way.
Through to the chair, through to Councillor Haas. That's correct. The town of Hinton has not conducted a study. A sound model was conducted.
A sound model, yeah. So no, I then am full in favor of bringing this to the discussion so we can have another fulsome conversation as to, you know, I think my mind is I think we need that study first, you know, to figure out, you know, before moving forward. So, but that will be for a budget discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the motion on the floor. I think that I certainly would not be in favor of installing or, you know, looking at installing the panels without making sure that we're going to achieve the proper results for the neighborhood. I think that we need to be accountable to having that sound study done so we know we kind of reach that. And I think that option 2 as presented is the most accountable thing for us to be considering through the budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Taylor.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a mistake.
Okay, Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to prepare a CPP for pickleball sound reduction panels as summarized in option 2 for deliberation in budget 2025. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question, councillors. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council direct administration to draft an amendment to the nuisance bylaw to reflect court hours of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the courts located adjacent to Gerard Redmond Community Catholic School and to subsequently install signage indicating court closure times. I feel like this has been spoken to enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to draft an amendment to the nuisance bylaw to reflect court hours of 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the courts located adjacent to Gerard Redmond Community Catholic School and to subsequently install signage indicating court closure times. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. And Council, is there anything further for item 6.3 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.4, short-term rentals bylaw amendment number 1162, TAC 1. CAO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn this over to Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor, through to council. So last meeting, October 15th, council discussed parameters around managing the compliance for the 100 unit cap for non-principal residents, short-term rentals, and that has been added into the bylaw. As well, discussion took place and a motion was made to exclude apartment buildings as short-term rentals. A definition of apartment building has been added into the bylaw, and the exclusion of apartment buildings has been added into the definition of short-term rentals. Council provided first reading and second reading last meeting, and this evening we are looking for third reading on this bylaw. If you have any questions, I'm to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Council? Councillor Magoon.
I want to start with a question for administration. I've had a lot of discussions since the last time we had this before council around the business license costs that we had essentially amended the last time from 1,500 and brought it down. I guess my question is, and I had a couple of side conversations with fellow councilors to clarify. It is fully possible to have the non-principal residents short-term rental bylaws, or pardon me, the non-principal residents short-term rental accommodations have one level of business license fee, and then other accommodations where it is the principal residence could have another fee. That two-tier system is acceptable, and essentially that's what we had done in the past, correct?
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, the rates are fully at the discretion of council of if we want to do it separately for the different types or whether we want to have it as the same number.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
and this is just one of those ones that I have to own because it's generated a lot of conversation with folks in the public that I've been speaking with. Again, today I just got some communication on it. One of the things I think I lost sight of in our last discussion is the fact that the non-principal residence rentals, they're not a home. And I have to own that. That was, we were debating it at the time, and that's one of the things that I didn't consider in our last debate. And it was re-brought to my attention that, these are in fact residences that are being used for the, for a business purpose, whatever the context is around an individual house. And so I guess I'm interested in council's feelings, and I don't just want to throw potential amendments forward for the sake of amendments, but I'm interested in your thoughts about the two-tier business license around that. And also the fact that we have all of council here with us today impacts that discussion as well. So I guess I'm just throwing that out to council to see if there is an appetite to revisit that while we still have a chance. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
And Councillor Magoon, just for some clarification, we have the business license bylaw and the fees, rates, and charges bylaw coming up as the next two items. Would this discussion perhaps fit in with it? Okay. Excellent. So council, once again, there is no motion on the floor. We are on item 6.4, short-term rental bylaw amendment 1162 TAC 1, and questions for administration or motions. Once again, there's currently no motion on the floor. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move the council give the short-term rentals bylaw number 1162-1 third reading.
Thank you. Councillor Haas, would you like to speak to it?
I think we spoke enough to it. We've one of the biggest things was on the cap, but we couldn't seem to get off that 100. So I think that we've given a fair shot at that. So I'm comfortable with that. So thank you.
Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to amend the motion to introduce a cap for section 4 of 200. Thank you. And I've come across new information since we spoke last in a report, and that report indicated that at lower levels of STRs in the community, the impacts on rents haven't been well proven. But at higher levels, there is a smaller and positive relationship. So I don't think, as I said last week, at 100, it was justified, and that report kind of says that. But at higher levels, council has a concern with caps as well and a concern with rental rates. So I believe a number of 200 would be justified. This report also indicated that even at the higher levels of STRs for the report, that was a Conference Board of Canada report, not all of the increase was related to the cap. Only 25% of the cap, only 25% increases were related to STRs. I mean, at the higher levels, 75% of the increases were related to other things like interest rates, the economy, the desirability of location. And by having a higher cap, hopefully it gives council some comfort, but it also allows a little room for those who are in favor of town growth And the economic benefits of STRs, like 100 STRs in the town is got an economic benefit potentially in a couple of million. And we need those benefits and extra taxes to help pay for services. So please consider a different and a higher cap. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw to include a cap of 200 in section 4. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For myself, I won't support an amendment of 200. That being said, I would remind council that when we engaged in this last time, there was an attempt to develop a bit of a compromise between high cap and a low cap. By default, right now, the way the policy is written is that the cap is 100. I'm perfectly happy to go a little bit higher, but certainly not to the extent of 200. I previously had proposed, I think it was about 150, which actually gives room for growth. I'm not happy enabling those folks who have been doing non-principal residences without following the town bylaws. I'm not supportive of that. We have bylaw, we have policy for a reason. At the very base minimum, one of those is fire safety codes, ensuring that no residence is put into an unfair or unsafe situation. So I would strongly recommend council to consider with all of us here that we do want to reach a compromise, I think, between low and high. And as a default, though, if we can't strike that, the current number in the bylaw is 100, which is low to me. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw to include a cap of 200 in section 4. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Taylor and Councillor Chambers voting in favor. All opposed? And that motion is carried 5-2 with Councillor Taylor and Councillor Chambers voting opposed. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion.
Councillor Magoon, let me just remind council that the motion on the floor currently is that council give short-term rentals bylaw number 1162 TAC 1 third reading.
An amendment, Mr. Mayor.
If you'd like to make an amendment,
Yeah.
please do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the motion on the floor. And much in the same vein as Councillor Taylor's previous motion, but with a number to reflect 160 units. And if I could speak to that again, just briefly. Again, I think really what council is striving for here is trying to find a happy compromise between a high and a low number. I think this is our last chance to do so. If we leave the default bylaw as it's written, we know that with the identified units in the community being approximately 130, there are 30 current operators that will essentially be left out. I would much rather give them a chance to be brought into this current bylaw fairly, and also give that small room for growth. And then we revisit it down the road to see, is this problematic? Do we need to increase it? Do we need to decrease it, given the data at the time? So I'm looking for council support for a little bit of compromise there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw to include a cap of 160 units in section 4. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not support this motion. I want to wait and see and revisit. I want to wait and see what the new license fee, if that gets passed, does. And does that encourage the non-primary people who don't have a license right now to get a license? And if it does, then I'm certainly interested to go.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also not going to be in support of the proposed motion. A couple times it's been proposed to raise it to 130, which I supported. And 130 was a number I was comfortable with, as it would have accommodated all of the non-principal residents that are currently advertising as short-term rental accommodations. That was the number that I was comfortable with. I'm not comfortable moving it up to 160. That's potentially another 30 starter homes that are taken off the market for conventional rentals or for purchase for young families who need to live here because they need to work here or be here for any number of reasons. So I'm not going to support going up to 160. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Taylor.
I do support it. I think it's allows some growth in this area and it provides protection at the upper level. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is amendment to the bylaw to include a cap of 160 units in section 4. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Taylor, Councillor Chambers, and Councillor Magoon. All opposed? And that motion is defeated 4-3. Council, the motion on the floor is that council give the short-term rentals bylaw number 1162, TAC 1, third reading. Councillor Magoon.
Try one last time, Mr. Like to, again, follow the same format as before, but setting a limit of 130, please, administration. And it has been spoken to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to include a cap of 130 units in section 4 of the bylaw. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? Got Councillor Taylor, Councillor Race, Councillor Chambers. Oh, everybody but me. That's excellent. And one opposed, Mayor Nissen. Okay, so the motion on the floor then, council, is that council give the short-term rentals bylaw number 1162, TAC 1, third reading as amended now. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 6.4 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.5, business license bylaw amendment, number 1126, TAC 3, CAO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. This one will also go to Ms. Walker, but before I do, and I should have mentioned it before, just to make sure that we do have 3 bylaws that are all interconnected to make sure that there's a pathway and not a dead end, that we ask that we come to some kind of conclusion on third reading in the next 2 items. But I'll turn that over to Ms. Walker.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor, through to council. At the last meeting of council, motions were made to pass first reading and second reading on the business license bylaw 1126-3. With that, the fee of the non-principal residents fines from, we had, sorry, just losing my little bearings here, sorry. Yes, we proposed fines to be increased from 2,000 for your first offense, 2,500 for your second offense, and 3,000 for your third and subsequent offense. It was meant to assign penalties that are proportionate for the existing fees charged for non-principal residents. They were reflected in the bylaw in Schedule A and in the Schedule Fees, Rates, and Charges bylaw. And with that, we are looking for third reading tonight. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker.
Through the mayor, if I could.
Go ahead, CAO Panasic.
For the business license bylaw, we have referred all of the fees. So we actually, so if I know there's, the potential of fee discussion, but that would be in the next item. This one really is just a flow through of all the fees, rates, and charges into the next item.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Council, there we go. Councillor Chambers.
I'd like to make the motion that council give business license bylaw number 1126-3 third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Council, the motion on the floor is that council give business license bylaw number 1126, TAC 3, third reading. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? That motion is carried unanimously. Is there anything further for item 6.5 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.6, fees, rates, and charges, bylaw amendment number 2000, TAC 1, CAO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor, through to the rest of council. So the new fees and rates and charges bylaw, there's only been a few changes. The first is that the short-term rentals for non-principal residents has been changed from $1,500 per year to $165 per year. The other changes are related to the specified penalties for short-term rentals for non-principal residents, which is 2,000 for the first offense, 2,500 for the second, and 3,000 for the third. But those are all the changes that we are proposing at this time, other than the conversion of all of the existing rates and fees going over into this new bylaw.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Councillor Magoon, this would be the time for, there we go, Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to seek an amendment reflected on page 103 of 123 that the short-term rental non-principal residents per calendar year fee be increased from $165 back to $1,500. And then if I may speak to that briefly, lots of conversation with the community regarding this particular decrease since the last time we met. Really, in short, what it comes down to is the fact that this is a non-principal residence that somebody is essentially utilizing as a business within a residential area. Hence, the chain or the initial implementation of a $1,500 fee. And I recognize that I have changed my position on this. That's because this is a delicate one, and it has sparked a lot of conversation with citizens that have approached me on this at this time. So this is one of those ones where it's not about me, it's about the we. I'm just trying to hear the voices of those folks who have approached me, and I think this reflects that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw to amend the short-term rental non-principal residence business license fee to $1,500. Is there any discussion? Councillor Taylor.
I don't support it. There are other home businesses that we don't charge a fee that high for. So that wouldn't be consistent with that. And if part of the purpose is to even up the competition between this business and say hotels, I would respectfully say that's not a legitimate town concern. We don't do that with pizza joints and other things, and provide hotels with a kind of a captive market. And if we're interested in making these businesses pay business fees, the legitimate way to do that would be to, if we can, to make it have them called a business and have them pay business property taxes. That's the way I would see it if we wanted to do that. Anyways, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When this came up last time, I was okay either way. I'm okay with switching it back to. I'll be supportive of the motion. The argument that's been made in the past is that they are legitimate businesses that are running a business in a residential neighborhood, and they're paying residential tax rates on the property rather than commercial tax rates, which was the original argument for setting the business license fee at $1,500. I'm fine with moving it back for that reason. I would like to look to administration, though. Councillor Taylor's suggestion of taxing residential properties at a commercial mill rate is intriguing. Is that something that would be feasible or viable?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, it is possible, and some communities do regulate short-term rentals, and some do it through a license fee, like the town of Hinton has done in the past. Some have done it through a non-residential tax rate. Jasper being our closest neighbor, they do it as well. They do it for non-principal residents. They also do it on a portion of principal residence units as well. So there is options that we can look at. We do have some outstanding direction from committee to bring back some options when it comes to looking at alternative regulations, maybe from a perspective. This is one of the items that we did plan on incorporating within that report, is looking at the tax rates of it. I would say that generally speaking, most regulate this through a license fee just because it's a little bit easier to administer. But there's certainly other options out there.
Thank you, CO Panasic. Follow-up, Councillor Stashik?
Yeah, if I could.
Right.
I'm still in support of moving this forward today and looking forward to getting that information to possibly amend the bylaw at some point in the future and maybe consider these non-principal residents STRs as businesses and that they get taxed at a commercial mill rate. That's fine for future consideration, but moving it forward today, I'm fine. And to me, the difference between a non-principal residence STR and a more conventional home-based business is the difference is that the entire property is being used as the business. In a traditional home-based business, it's a portion of the property and the homeowner lives in the rest of the property. So a portion of it might be dedicated to a 2-chair hair salon in a basement or storage of some inventory or a home office or something like that, but it's still primarily a residential property. So to me, that's what the difference is between a non-principal residence STR and a regular home-based business. And that's why I support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Magoon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could ask administration, and I'll preface it like this, and I think I'm kind of looking at Ms. Borbo. If you don't have an answer, that is okay. But using back of the, envelope math, is it possible if we said that there was a residence that was assessed at approximately, say, $400,000? How would what would that work out to a year with a mill rate as opposed to a residential tax rate? Can you give us a number on that?
CO Panasic?
If I could, and I believe, and this is back of the envelope map as requested, but it was approximately about the ratio from residential to non is approximately 40%. So if you pay $3,000 in property tax, that would be about $1,200 additional.
Okay. That's all I need, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, CO Panasic. Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might be putting the cart before the horse, but if the non-primary residents, if they're renting it out for 4 months out of the year as a short-term rental, but then for 8 months, they're renting it, to a family. How would that work if you wanted to charge them a commercial mill rate?
CO Panasic?
Through the mayor to members of council, I don't know the particulars of all the regulations, but being that it's typically use and you only can charge one or the other, I think that as a regulatory decision of council, we'd be making a decision through policy on how we were going to classify non-principal STRs. So they would be the assessment would be fully within the non-residential tax rate, similar to what we're doing with the license fees, because there are some situations where typically the summertime they're operating as a short-term rental, and then sometimes in the winter, I believe some operators are offering long-term rentals throughout the winter months, but we deal with that on the license fee, where it's still a license fee if you want to operate as a non-principal short-term rental. Doesn't matter if you do it for 4 months of the year or 12. So, yeah.
So right now, I'm not going to support. Did Councillor Magoon make a motion to go back to $1,500?
Yes,
Yes.
that is the motion on the floor right now, is an amendment to the bylaw that the short-term rental non-principal residence business license fee be set at $1,500.
Okay, so right now, I'm not going to support that. I'm not going to, waffle, back and forth. I want to wait and see if keeping it at, is it 165, the business license fee?
That
The
is
fee?
what is currently
I
presented.
See if that is encouraging the people who do have non-primary residents to get licenses, to get inspected and make that property. So I know it's safe when, my family comes and rents the house and things are good. So I just want to see where that 165 takes us right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just speaking to Councillor Race's consideration is that the fee shouldn't dictate whether somebody follows the law. I think the fact that the law is the law should be the reason that people follow the law. That being said, I think the consideration here is the fact that you have a standalone home that was, originally planned for and zoned a home is being used in its entirety as a business. So we have to make an allocation for that. As our, several of our fellow counselors have identified, it might be even better to then assess it as a business and tax it as a business. But as the CAO indicated, using back of the cocktail napkin math, it's still in the right ballpark. So, given that consideration, again, that's why I feel in engaging with our citizens and respectfully, I don't think it's waffling. I think it's listening to our citizens and hearing what their concerns are. These are homes that are being used as businesses. Therefore, it's more fair to the community as a whole that they be assessed like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. I won't be supporting the motion as presented right now. I think that, the decision was made at the 165. I appreciate certainly listening to, people around the room what that is. But I think with the motion that Councillor Reddy has to really do a deeper dive into the planning, looking at the land use bylaw planning, if we look at taxation, I think there's deeper conversations that need to happen. And I think it's responsible for us to just have them at $165 per year, the same as everybody else, until we can come up with some good, solid facts and decisions based on what really is the best decision to go forward with. I do believe that they should be seen differently. I do believe they are different, but I don't believe we have all the facts at the moment to jump all over that. So I won't be supporting that as presented at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be in favor of this. And I think part of it is that we had people having STRs not following the rules at 1,500 and dug their heels in. And now we're saying, okay, that was too much. So we'll go down 165 and then they'll be compliant. I don't think that's a good way of doing business. I agree with Councillor Magoon. You might not agree with the amount, but it was a bylaw. And, we've had other people come on different matters of taxes and penalties and things like that. And we say, no, you have the responsibility to pay your taxes. So you had the responsibility to pay that. And I just don't feel it right to just go back just because it was too much money. I don't want to pay it. So I'm not going to pay it. And I don't agree with that. And I still believe that this is two different things. This is a lot different. You have a business with commercial taxes. You now have a business, full home in a residence that is paying 165. That is not a comparison to a home-based business, in my opinion. So I think that I too would like to see the conversation happen, but in the meantime, I think we leave it at the 1,500. And I think, like I said, it sounds like it might even be less when we do that. So that's where I'm at it. I think it's, important that we have this fee that's representative of what is in that residential area. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. The next conversation that I want to have is they are a business, so I want to see them charged a commercial rate on that house. That's the next conversation I want to have. So I want to keep it in the direction we're going right now, get some more information back, and then have a conversation about a commercial rate. And didn't we pick $1,500 because they are not being taxed commercial? Okay, so I thought that was one of the reasons we went with a $1,500 license fee. Is that right?
I'm getting lots of nods of support from councillors behind me here, so yes.
So next conversation I want to have is let's talk about a commercial rate, because I've heard repeatedly from people, this is a business. This is a business. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, just one last shot and then I'll be finished. I don't see what additional information, Councillor Race, that you would need. In short, using that same logic, I should buy a house invest in it less than I would on a standalone building for a business and operate, say, a screen printing operation out of there and do signage, but not live there. Because then I'm not paying commercial rates on the home. I'm just owning a home that I just happen to be running a business out of, and I'll pay my regular business license of $160. Like, that's the workaround that I'm seeing. And that's the discussion I've had with residents, is that these are standalone homes that were zoned residential that are being used for a business purpose. And that's what's really been driven home to me over the last couple of weeks, is that that's what I missed that first time around. So I don't see what time's going to get you on that. And respectfully, if you need time, that's your choice, but I don't see what additional information you'll need.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race, I'll let you respond to that.
Thank you. Maybe I'm missing something here, okay? So, when I say the next conversation that I want to have is to charge these people a commercial mill rate. Why don't we do that today? So I think we can't do that today because we need more information. I might be missing something in this conversation. And if I am, and you're nodding, you guys tell me what I'm missing. And I could certainly change my mind.
Thank you, Councillor Race. And if I can hopefully help to clarify a little bit, the motion on the floor changes the business license fee for the non-principal residences today in a bylaw that we can bring through third reading today. Further discussion on mill rates and commercial mill rates will require a further motion of council to direct administration to bring that back to council at this time. If council has the desire to move this bylaw through third reading. I'm going to let some of the other councillors, though, who've jumped in the queue here to answer your question, speak. Councillor Haas is up next.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused, Councillor Race. You're saying you want to have the conversation to commercially tax them. And the reason what we did with the 1,500 is because it wasn't commercially taxed. We were doing it. So we're saying, I'm confused. You're wanting to do the same thing that we're considering with this $1,500 is to, in the meantime, to put a fee on that would be somewhat equivalent to what a commercial tax rate would be. And then later we could possibly switch it from a fee to a commercial tax rate. So we're looking at taking in this fee. So you're in favor of increasing it, but you're wanting to keep it at 165. So I guess that's where I'm a little confused from your perspective. So
Councillor Race.
I guess what I'm thinking is I really want to encourage the people who do have the non-primary residents who are not coming in and getting a license because the fee is so high. And they're not paying that. And I don't know, if we're out there monitoring them and giving them tickets. But I'm hoping that if the business license is cheaper, that they will come in, get the license, get the inspection, get everything that they need to ensure us that property is safe. So.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my thinking on it is that the additional business license fee is the compensation for them not being commercially taxed. I am looking forward to getting a report from administration regarding commercial taxation of non-principal resident STRs. Perfect. In the meantime, though, I think this is the happy medium that achieves collecting that additional revenue that we're not collecting through taxation through the business license process. At some point in the future, if it's council's will to amend the bylaw again to make it so that the non-principal residents STRs are charged a commercial mill rate, then we can also look at the business license fee at that time and move it back so it's more in line with what a conventional business is, because this conventional business will then be paying commercial taxes. That's why I support moving it forward today and taking a look at it down the road at some point in the future when administration brings it back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Taylor.
Just a couple of quick points. I don't want to belabor this. these short-term rentals, usually only short-term rentals for like 5 months a year. For 7 months a year, they are long-term rentals. We don't charge long-term rentals a premium on their business license fee for commercial because of the commercial aspect. So that doesn't seem fair. And then the other point is that if we do 1,500, my fear would be that we would be getting us back into potential compliance issues. People would be like they have been avoid paying this because it's difficult for us to catch them. So we have a 25% compliance rate right now. And we'll remove that substantially if we have $165 for a business license fee. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, so I guess I'd challenge where, because when I look on Airbnbs, there may be some that do rent them out, but the majority of them that I see are all year long. There may be some, yes, and I know there is some that do, but I wouldn't say that that is the majority of them. The other thing too is, we currently, as to do with the enforcement, that's the reason that we are increasing the enforcement by bringing in that company to also monitor the Airbnbs, which makes actually enforcement much easier because before our enforcement was trying to locate these residents. So I think that the incentive is the penalties. And to me, again, I don't agree with some penalties or fees that are out there, but I have to pay them. That's in order to do business, that's the order to, I might not want to go and pay 90 some dollars to register my vehicle, but that's what it is. And we have to pay it. And so that the incentive is that's a bylaw. And the incentive, if you don't want to pay it, then needs to be the penalty fees. So I'm not in favor of just because you didn't want to pay it, then we decrease it. That's not how you do things. That's to me that then we all would do that. I don't want to pay my taxes because it's too high, so I just won't pay them. But then there's penalties for that. So I don't understand the logic of this. Let's incentivize it by decreasing just because everybody didn't, or a lot of them didn't pay it. I don't think that's fair to the ones that did pay it and followed the bylaw. So to me, this is a compromise until we have that future conversation that everybody at this table wants to have, that is going to increase their fees potentially through taxes. This is just a different way of doing it. So that's where I'm at. And I won't speak any more to this.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Magoon.
I promise I really do want to go home and watch the American election. But that being said, there's some good debate here. Just to speak to the concept of X number of days of the year, a short-term rental non-principal is available or not. Well, comparatively, we don't charge standalone businesses different rates of taxation based on the fact of if they're open 5 days a week or 7 days a week. They are a business in our community 365 days a year. And in this case, what's more important is they are a standalone business in our community in a residential neighborhood 365 days of a year. We don't dictate how many days in a given year you're operational as a business. That's a business choice. But the fact of the matter is you're operating a business within a residential area as a standalone facility, not as it's out of my house and I'm going to pay $160 or $165. In this case, it's you're taking up that space and you can't avoid the commercial rate of taxation. So, and that's it. I promise that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. So Council, the motion on the floor is a motion to amend the bylaw such that the short-term rental non-principal residence business license fee is set at $1,500. Is there any further discussion? Yes, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw such that the short-term rental non-principal residence business license fee is set at $1,500. Thank you, Councillor Rice. Any further discussion from council? Seeing nothing, all in favor? And all opposed. Councillors Taylor and Chambers voting opposed. That motion is passed 5-2. Council, there is no motion on the floor right now, but if we were looking to move forward, it will be as amended. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the motion that council give third reading to fees, rates, and charges bylaw number 2001-1 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, the motion on the floor is that council give third reading to fees, rates, and charges bylaw number 2001, TAC 1 as amended. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And all opposed? Councillor Taylor opposed. That motion is passed 6-1 with Councillor Taylor voting against. Council, is there anything further for item 6.6 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.7, Clean Energy Improvement Program, Notice of Motion, Councillor Race. Councillor Race, would you like to read your motion into the minutes?
Thank you, sir. I would like to move that administration brings back a report on adopting the Clean Energy Improvement Program with self-funding options to finance the program in regards to energy retrofits in residential, business, and multi-unit residents to be administered through Alberta Munis. And if I could speak to that, sir?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so upon receiving the information presented to council in October regarding the Clean Energy Improvement Program, I had to take a closer look at this program. The Clean Energy Improvement Program will assist our citizens with loans to make their homes energy efficient. And what they're seeing right now is the windows, the doors, the hot water tanks, insulation are a few of the energy savers that people are looking to make application for. So an overview of this program, in 2019, FCM, or Federation of Canadian Municipalities, brought this program to all of our provinces. And we actually signed a resolution of interest February of 2019. Since 2019, Alberta has jumped in feet first, and municipality after municipality has bought into this program to such an extent that FCM has said there's no more money for Alberta. You guys, you've taken it, and we're not going to be funding this program anymore for municipalities who want to get in right now. I had to start phoning municipalities that had the Clean Energy Improvement Program in place. Speaking with them led me to 3 municipalities who are self-funding this project. Athabasca is one community who self-funds. Sterling, little community, Southern Alberta, they're self-funding it, and Stettler. And they're self-funding it either with a line of credit or out of their reserve. I was able to speak with the administration staff who took care of their respective programs. In Athabasca, it was the chief financial officer. In Stettler, it's the deputy CAO. And in Sterling, it is the CAO. I was able to set up meetings at our Alberta AUMA convention that we were just at, and we had Kim Heimers from Stettler came to us, our table, and talked to us about the program. Scott from Sterling met with us, and we had a really good conversation. Sorry for turning my back to you. Good conversation with Scott in regards to the program. I really want to thank everybody, who was at the conference, who attended the talk with these 2 people. Each municipality has extended an offer to council and administration to help in any way they can. And they're saying, we'll give you the policies, we'll give you the bylaw, we'll give you the agreement that we worked up with Alberta municipalities. Anything you need, we're going to help you. The CAO of Sterling has said he will zoom in. He will zoom in, talk to anybody about this program. Information that I feel is very pertinent for council to know is you enter into an agreement with Alberta Munis. There is an initial fee that we will pay to Alberta Munis. Alberta Municipalities handles the majority of the work, and that's about 90% of the work Alberta Municipalities takes care of. They monitor the progress of the contractors. They make sure that all the inspections are completed. They onboard all the contractors, and they make sure that the contractors are reputable, that they all have their WCB, that they have all their insurances in place. Alberta Munis basically takes care of this program. What we, the town, are required to do is get notification. Once we get notification of the application, our job is to ensure that the applicant, tax roll has to be checked. And they want to make sure that the person who is applying for this is in good standing for 5 years. So that's what our administration would doing. And also, administration would also make sure that the payment that the applicant would be making would not exceed the yearly tax levy. Alberta Munis verifies all information on the application. They make sure all the paperwork is submitted and complete, and they approve the application once it is submitted to them. Once the project is complete, it's now time to pay the contractor, Alberta Munis will get a hold of our municipality for payment. There is so much more that I could tell you about this program. I could talk to you about when people get money from us to be part of this program. We're going to, there'll be an interest rate on that, but I don't think that's something that I need to bring to council's attention. What I have found out, the information that I have collected tells me that we do not warrant a full-time person taking care of this, nor a part-time person. I urge council, if you would like to contact Stettler CAO, their deputy CAO, to contact Scott in Sterling. And once again, Scott has offered to zoom in, give us any information, any assistance that we require. Our job as councillors is to make decisions based on the best information that we can receive. I'm asking for a new report from administration on the Clean Energy Improvement Program, as there seems to be additional information out there from the municipalities that are self-funding this. So I think it's really important that prior to making a decision, or I'm hoping we will make a decision, that we have the best information that we can get. So, and I do want to say, I am so respectful of consensus of council. So however this vote goes, I will continue to respect my fellow councillors. But I hope we take every opportunity to find out as much about this program, which would benefit our citizens, as we can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor, well, hold on a second. The motion on the floor is that administration brings back a report on adopting the Clean Energy Improvement Program with self-funding options to finance the program in regards to energy retrofits in residential, business, and multi-unit residents to be administered through Alberta Munis. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no doubt in my mind that this program could benefit our citizens, absolutely, and it's benefited others. My only concern is the self-funded options. I heard reserves, taking from our current reserves and funding this. I heard a line of credit. I also heard that there was a fee to Alberta Munis for this too. So there's some cost to this. I realize there may be interest and things like that, but my question is, how long will that return that money to our reserves? The other main concern I have, and I appreciate the fact that other councillors or other communities can speak to administratively. However, my concern is, I don't know what their strategic plan is. I don't know what their agendas look like. Maybe in their community, their administration is able to handle an additional program. However, I see our CEO's comments on this, and this would be, an additional intensive, addition to our staff's already very hectic agendas. We have been a very aggressive council. There's a lot of things pending. This would just be an additional, and it's a new program, and we know new programs are going to take longer. So I'm just not sure that we're set up at this time for this, for those very reasons. I'm sure that in the beginning, it might have been not self-funded FCM, but they realized that there is a need, but then pulled that funding and is on the backs of our municipalities. And we've already got enough, I think, to consider when it comes to our reserves and our operational and everything like that. So at this time, I can't support this. I think that there may be a better time for this, but just right now, it wouldn't for those reasons. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you through the mayor. I will be supporting this motion. I had the opportunity at the Alberta Munis Conference to chat with some of these municipalities. Certainly understanding that there is workload involved. I do understand and respect the CAO's comments, but I do believe that maybe a bit of a deeper dive into what that program looks like now. Have there been changes, all of that. I do think that there's a lot of benefit to potentially to some homeowners and families that may not be in a position otherwise to do some upgrades, things like windows, furnaces, that type of thing. So I will support the motion as presented by Councillor Race at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Taylor.
I do support it too, primarily for three reasons, and it was what I heard at the AUMA. Reason one is that, thank you, Joanne, when you set up those meetings with the communities that are doing it, the staffing resources certainly weren't anywhere near what they're talked about in this request for a decision package. They weren't even close to this. The number of properties on the uptake weren't close to these numbers. They were half to 1/3 of those numbers, so that was different. And regarding taking it from reserves and impacting your reserves, there were other ways to do that. Take it, borrow the money and do it through a debenture, and that wouldn't actually impact your line of credit. That was what two of the CAOs told me. So there's three bits of information that are different than this package that was given back in August. And so I think it is worth getting some updated information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My challenge is I don't really understand what's materially changed since last time we discussed this. This has already been before council. We already discussed it, debated it. Council's concerns were brought to the table, and for me, they haven't changed. My concerns were utilizing town resources, financial resources to fund this, and the additional administrative burden. I appreciate that some councillors have talked to some other municipalities that have utilized this and that they don't feel the administrative burden is as much as what we originally thought it was. But even in this request for decision, there's comments from the CAO that it does represent significant administrative investment. And if council wants to move ahead, there's a recommendation to not do it for like almost 2 years. So it's to me, unless somebody can explain what's materially changed from last time this was before us, I'm not going to be able to support it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I think what has changed is in the first report that we were given, it said that we would be required to hire a full-time person at what, $60,000-$80,000 a year. I go to Alberta Munis and I say, my goodness, I mean, who can afford that, eh? And they go, where did you get that information? That's not correct. I talked to one CAO. He said it took him about 3 days, to get a feel for the program. Another CAO, 20 minutes a month, 20 minutes a month. That's what she has to devote to this. And all it requires is that 20 minutes a month. They have an established program. So to me, a lot has changed. The information from that first report to what I've been able to garner from people. So a lot has changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. CO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, I'll clarify some of my comments, but my main concern with this is, well, I'll start with, I do appreciate the experience of the other municipalities, but there's a tipping point in every organization. And there's an evolution of where your organization's at and your ability to take things on. I would say all the municipalities I worked in prior, this would be pretty easy. But there's not much that we have not been tasked to change within this department. But my main concern is that we're talking about implementing a program at the same time of doing a complete transition of our accounting services. And this is a major project that is going to be riddled with problems. I can almost assure that is a very painful process. And that is what I have asked my corporate services staff to be focused on throughout the course of 2025. As well as many outstanding items and that we also need to get to. So capacity is specifically in this area is a concern for me, and implementing a program within a transitioning system is, I think it's problematic. And if we want to be responsible and ensure that we're going to deliver this effectively, it's going to be very challenging to do that, and very challenging to do that with our existing manpower for any new programs within corporate services. So could we adopt this program within existing staff in 25? We could, but something will give, right? And it's just, it's a matter of how many problems are we going to be looking at. I think, we have great staff. I'm sure we can get it done, but I have some concerns over transitioning that accounting software system, making sure everything's talking to each other, getting those systems to talk with all of the other softwares. And that is a 12 to 18 month process. So capacity just at a baseline is a concern for me.
Thank you, CO Panasic. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you. And I appreciate the CEO Panasic. And that goes back to my original statement, is that we don't know where those other communities are. And I've learned a lot over the last 7 years being on council. One thing that I've learned is when councilors talk to CAOs of other communities, CAOs are never going to go against what council's decision was. CAOs are really good, and I compliment the CEO. Hey, we'll get her done. The council's decision is this, we'll get her done. But they're not going to come to us, another council, and say, look, you know what? Don't do that because we're overrun. They are respectful of it. I think on the other side of that, we talk to counselors. Counselors don't realize what goes on over there as much either. And we think, we can add that to it as well. So I guess grain of salt wise, the information we've got, quite frankly, no information has changed. I didn't base my decision the last time we talked about this on the full-time position. It wasn't. It was on the capacity for one. And it was on, honestly, I don't know how our taxpayers feel about a citizen in our community taking out a loan with taxpayers' money to improve their homes. If I was a taxpayer, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I think I wouldn't be very comfortable with that, to be honest with you. Sure, I could do it, but I don't see that as, those tax dollars are there for the community. They're not there for individual homes. And that's where I made my decision on, is if there was another way that funds can be, that doesn't come from our funds, maybe then. But at the same time, I just haven't seen anything change. And even, to CEOs, again, it hasn't changed in my perspective. I think this is could be a good program. It's just not a right fit for our community right now, based on all the things that have been said tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I want to speak to this councillor race is because I think you've done a lot of homework on the program, and that's something to be commended. I think that's not something you often see with motions of council. Usually they come through our committee, administration prepares the reports, and we vote on them and move on. So to go to AM, talk to our fellow communities, identify programs that you think are beneficial for the community, and to really invest in that, I think that's important. And if it was for If it wasn't for one thing, I would be supportive at this point in time. Because I think this is a really good program, but it's not often that I hear the CAO be very clear in his warning to council to say, look, we can deliver this program, but please be aware, next year's a critical year for us, given the changes that are happening in the organization. There could be problems. So I don't want to disregard that advice. I think this is one of those things where if we're patient and we wait until 2026, whoever's the council of the day, if they still feel there's value in that program, they can implement it. And again, I want to be respectful of the advice that the CAO is offering on behalf of administration, because we don't get that clear directive often. And I just want to make sure that I'm weighing that against the immediacy of the program. Is this program immediately necessary in this calendar year, given the advice we've received from the CAO? No, I don't think it is. I think it's something we could offer in 2026. And so we would have time to, or the council of the day would have time to bring that up. So it's just, yeah, it's tough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Magoon, thank you very much. I always appreciate it when you speak up. For anyone to say, I don't see what has changed from the first time we got this report to what we're seeing today, I don't know if we're reading the same reports. That first report said we needed a full-time person to implement this. AM Munis is saying we don't need a full-time person. Athabasca, Sterling, Stetler, they didn't hire a new person. And a question that was asked of me by Alberta Munis is, who did our administration talk to collect the information that they brought to us? And that's a question I have for administration. Who did we talk to bring that information that says we need a full-time person?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor is my understanding that we went through, in order to get this, we have to go through a training program through Alberta municipalities for the program. So we had staff go through the training program for the SEEP and then bring this forward.
So Alberta Munis said we needed a full-time person?
These are training webinars. No, that decision was based on administration and based on a conversation about all these other elements that we have and the capacity concerns that we have for this area.
Okay. Well, like I said, I am very respectful of council's decision, however this goes. I'm just really happy that I did bring it forward and let the community know about this wonderful program. So thank you, sir. I won't speak again.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is that administration brings back a report on adopting the Clean Energy Improvement Program with self-funding options to finance the program in regards to energy retrofits in residential, business, and multi-unit residents to be administered through AB Munis. Councillor Hawes.
Good, sorry.
Okay. Okay, well, council, we've had a good discussion here. I'm going to speak to this motion. I'm going to be voting in favor of this motion today. I think bringing back a report is absolutely something that's worth doing. I do think that we do have new information in terms of the costing and the source of funds and how this program is designed to not actually affect our municipalities' finances. This is a program I'd like to see move forward for our residents, but at the same time, I'm not interested in rushing into it. And I'm interested in, quite frankly, seeing it after the Q3 of 2026 as recommended here. But right now it's for a report. And I do think we need a more accurate and better look at this. Thank you. Councillor Hawes, before we go to vote.
Yeah, sorry, I do want to speak to it. I guess this question about staffing, again, Alberta Munis probably didn't say you need a staff. It's based on this team and what is needed to do what needs to be done. We don't have, how many staff does Sterling have? You know, how many staff does Stetler have? How many staff do they have the capacity, which maybe they do. We're hearing we don't have the capacity to do this, and it will take a full-time staff to make this happen. And that's what I'm hearing our administration say. So, because I hear the fact, okay, we do a report. We all know though that report comes, they work hard on that report. then something's going to come from that report. Either it's going to be just tabled or put on a shelf, or it's something's going to happen and we still don't have the people that are needed to do this thing. So I'm still of the nature of Councillor Magoon's, exactly what he said earlier, is that, you know, this timing right now is not the time. And if in 2026 or down the road, the council of the day would like to see a report once everything is established and put in place, and, you know, and see again, do we have the capacity? But I'm struggling with the fact that we're saying we have the capacity when our CEO is saying we don't. To do this program, we don't. And I trust that CEO with that information. He knows the goings on of what is his team doing. And he's saying, we don't have the staff to do it. So I just don't see what a report 2 years down the road or a year down the road would be, you know, a more feasible option than to have that discussion. So I just don't want to see administration go off, do a report, do all the work and come back and say, okay, that's great, but we're not going to do anything. Or now here we're going to do it and we have to, you know, give it to them with the capacity we have it now. So that's where I'm at. And I had to speak to it again because I just don't think we're listening to me. We have good counselors have to also listen to our CEO to make good decisions on what we have the capacity of. And just because we want something doesn't mean we can have it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that administration brings back a report on adopting the Clean Energy Improvement Program with self-funding options to finance the program in regards to energy retrofits in residential, business, and multi-unit residents to be administered through AB Munis. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And all opposed. When that is Councillors Haas, Magoon, and Ostashik opposed, that motion is passed 4-3. Council, is there anything further for item 6.7 on the agenda today? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 6.8, grants in place of taxes program notice of motion. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor, would you please read your motion into the minutes? Microphone though, please. Thank you.
That council directs administration to develop an advocacy briefing note on the grants in place of taxes program that includes a total of the unpaid provincial tax burden. This is a follow-up from the AUMA, and actually where the idea came from was the premier of the province said that she was interested in this program. And since then, a number of municipalities have been advocating for that. This is the program where they used to give us grants for a lot of these agencies. What are they? The courthouse, the hospital, maybe there's some other ones I'm not aware of. And we would get a grant because we can't charge them property taxes. So she's indicated that she's interested in bringing that program back. And I think that we have demonstrated such good leadership through motions at the AOMA, and the mayor did an excellent job, that I'm proposing we continue to do this with this type of funding, and this advocacy note will work with surrounding towns, perhaps, and get something to the provincial government early. And then maybe if that doesn't work, another notice of motion for whoever's on the next, another notice of, not notice of motion, but a, what do you call that thing? Did at the resolution at the AOMA. And no, you can either take what you get from the provincial government, or you can try to influence activities at a provincial level. And I think it's worthwhile in this case because the premier said that. So I wanted to bring this back for at least a discussion to get your thoughts on that, because I thought it was something that needed a discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'll be in favor of this. You know, we're seeing more and more, you know, put on our municipalities, and this was just another that was taken away that we don't have access to revenue. So I think, you know, the premier did, I think, shock the rest of the ministry that was present with her comments, but she did say them. And the I believe the response in the room was very favorable to have that discussion as well. So I'm in favor of this. I think that it's very important that we advocate for this. And I would even, if we can somehow bring in our surrounding communities to get on board with us to start putting some pressure on the provincial government to bring this program back to our communities. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that council directs administration to develop an advocacy briefing note on the grants in place of taxes program that includes a total of the unpaid provincial tax burden. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 6.8 on the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item or section 7 correspondence. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we accept correspondence for information.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that council accept the correspondence package for information. Councillor Taylor.
Well, my question to administration would be that a lot of folks here have written letters of support for the museum. Any of these folks that have written letters of support for the museum, have they, beyond writing letters of support, are they on the museum board of directors, or have they gone farther to provide funding to the museum at all? Is there any indication? 'Cause some of them, like the federal minister, Gerald, that's nice you wrote a letter of support, but it would be better if you had given money, right?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, we're not sure. We weren't checking who it was and whether they have any kind of commitments towards the museum. So I don't believe it had anything to do with funding. I think it was just more of a letter of support for the value that they saw for the.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Haas.
Thank you. To answer, I guess, part of that question too, being the alternate on the board, and I've been to a couple of board meetings lately. These were all letters that were given by community organizations that were utilizing the services, and just speaking to, none of these individuals are on the board whatsoever that I looked through. It was all agencies that have taken part in that and showing support to council that this is a valuable resource in our community. So that's to answer that question. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that council accept the information package for information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is carried unanimously. Is there anything further for section 7 or item 7.1 on our agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, we'll move to section 8, information items, and 8.1, proclamation 2024 Family Violence Prevention Month. Proclamation, Family Violence Prevention Month. November is designated by the provincial government as Family Violence Prevention Month, and the town of Hinton wishes to raise awareness that family violence is one of the most prevalent detriments to a healthy family and community life today. Violence is any action that causes destruction, pain, and suffering, which has no place in a family or between intimate partners, and nevertheless occurs across cultural, socioeconomic, and other personal barriers. It includes both physical and emotional harm and threats. The town of Hinton wishes to actively promote respectful and healthy relationships in this community and discourage family violence. Family Violence Prevention Month also celebrates the actions of individuals, families, schools, workplaces, and sports organizations to prevent abuse through education, awareness, and acts of healthy relationships and kindness. As action is a vital part of fostering a violence-free community, we light Hinton's public facilities purple in November and encourage everyone to wear all things purple on Friday, November 15th. For the month of November, public are encouraged to wear purple ribbons. Hinton FCSS leads the Regional Family Violence Interagency and have planned many other community events. For these events, visit the Town of Hinton community calendar for more information. Everyone can be a part of the solution to end family violence. I urge all citizens in our community to participate in the November monthly events to help make our province and community abuse-free in 2024 and onward. And with these statements, I, Nicholas Nissen, Mayor of the Town of Hinton, do hereby proclaim the month of November 2024 as Family Violence Prevention Month in Hinton. Now, to go along with the proclamation, I will point out that council is wearing our purple ribbons today, and on November 23rd, the Yellowhead Emergency Shelter for Women's Society is putting on an event called the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, taking place at 2 p.m. At the Parks West Mall. It is a fundraiser for a great local organization that's doing great work in our community that has taken a hit on their fundraising lately due to the fires in Jasper, and it is an event where we get to walk around in some high heels, and apparently they've got high heels that will fit my size 12 feet. So I encourage anyone from council or administration to come out and walk in some high heels with me. And maybe we can get our fire department to bring out some big fire boots for the ladies. We can all stumble around the mall for a little bit in the afternoon. All right, we will move on to section 9 of the agenda today. Notices of motion. CAO Panasic, are there any notices of motion today?
Through the mayor, no, they're not.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. That will take us to reporting and council reports. Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik. Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of things. Since our organizational meeting, our library board met on the 28th, welcomed our new member, and also had our own organizational meeting, appointing Susan Armstrong again as our chair, and then also our vice chair. So, well, she's not the vice chair, Nora is, but we had that meeting. And then coming up, we have BBOC meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. We'll be finishing off, thanks to Miss Way and all her hard work. We've gone through a robust strategic plan exercise, and we will be finalizing that at our next meeting as well. And that is all I had to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Councilor Chambers.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Chambers. Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I met with Community Futures West Yellowhead. I had my first meeting with them. I met the committee, and very good discussion was had that day. I also met separately with Nancy to get a better understanding of what Community Futures is all about, and we're going to be meeting monthly, just to so I can really be come up to date with that committee. Also, last week I attended the youth adult meeting. Very good meeting. They set forth all the plans for each month of what they would like to see happen in the next year coming up. We've got 2 new members of council. The youth council brings the total to 8 councillors, and that's it, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Councilor Taylor. Thank you, Councilor Taylor. And for myself, we have budget meetings. The budget workshop starts tomorrow at 4:10 p.m. in the committee room and continues Thursday of this week, 4:10 p.m. Additionally, we've got strategic planning for both Community Futures and the Evergreen Society coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I'll have some interesting things, I'm sure, to bring back to council then. CAO reporting.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Councilor Taylor.
It's been discussed a couple of times during the meeting, and that is the information regarding the budget package. I've been told that it's public information. Can we make that public so people can have that to look at?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor, yes, we can. If I believe that typically our workshop documents are not released publicly. People do have the right to attend. But if we do want to release this publicly, I would actually ask for a motion of council.
Right.
Thank you, CAO Panasic.
That motion.
Go ahead.
That the 2024 budget documents be made public. And I think that's incumbent upon us to have budget discussions in a transparent and open manner. And making them public and for people to be able to attend those sessions is in keeping with that. We have better, I think, discussions if they're public.
Councillor Taylor, I think I'm going to require some further clarification for that motion as budget documents are public already. So specifically, what documents are you looking to be made public?
Oh, are they public? I
So
thought he
the-
said they weren't.
Our budget documents will be public.
Through the mayor, I don't believe that we put them through the same mechanism of the for council meetings or committee meetings, but I'm not sure if they've been put on the website.
So Councillor Taylor, if you could specify that you want the budget workshop documents to be made public,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Yes.
Okay, thank you,
That's what I
Councillor
mean.
Taylor. So the motion on the floor, and Councillor Taylor, correct me if I get this incorrect, is that council direct administration to make the 2024 budget workshop documents for November 6th and 7th publicly available. Did you have any specifications on how publicly available?
Well, just on the website before the session, not after the session, of course. But do I have to say that?
Yes, be publicly available on the website or on the Town of Hinton website prior to the budget workshop.
Thank you.
Ms. Borbo? Thank you, Ms. Borbo. Councillor Taylor, are you okay with us correcting that? Okay. So council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to make the 2026 budget workshop document, 2025 budget workshop documents from November 6th and 7th publicly available on the Town of Hinton website prior to the budget workshop. Does that work for you, Councillor Taylor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Just a quick question before I know whether or not I can support it. Administration, is there any proprietary or protected information in those documents? It being a workshop, like, are there any rates involving potential changes in salaries and those? Is there anything that shouldn't yet be in the public eye that we're anticipating discussing through the release of those documents? Because if there is, then I can't support it. If you don't anticipate any concerns, then I'm happy to support it going to the public.
Through the mayor to members of public, no. And this is, like I said before, the public has the opportunity to attend and listen to all these things. So there's nothing proprietary. We have created our publicly facing document, and it was just a little bit more a little bit more public friendly, just in that everything is under consideration, right? And out of respect for council who hasn't seen it, but we do want to have the projects out there. So we have created all of those, but all of the nitty gritty of the workshop document we haven't released.
Then, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just if we do have any members of the public who are watching or will watch this, I think it's important to recognize that this is the beginning of the workshop. You know, if it's the will of council to put these forward, there is nothing in stone. These are documents that council and administration are going to work through as part of our normal process. It is not the end of any process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Magoon's comments actually dovetail right into what I was going to say. I don't necessarily have any problem with it. My concern, though, is that the the workshop budget documents are so removed from what we wind up with as our final budget document. My concern is that people have a tendency to grab onto these things, and I would really hate for it to be misconstrued that that's the working draft budget document, because it's so far from being the working draft budget document that that's not a fair position to put council and administration in regards to what might come back as public feedback from it. I honestly would much rather prefer that we get through the workshop process, and when we get to the draft budget document, that's when it goes public to get feedback and get people's input on how council's doing on hitting the target that people support. I just think that the documents that help inform council during the workshop component, the workshop phase, they're just too preliminary to even be of much benefit to the citizens to look at. That's just my opinion, and it comes with the same word of caution that Councillor Magoon put forth, that if they are made public and people take a look at them, really, like, they are not at all firm budget documents at all. They're just a starting point to create discussion and debate, and to give administration direction on where to go with the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. And CO Panasic, just to clarify the process that Councillor Stashik outlined, where we do the workshop, the budget gets firmed up, and then the draft budget is released publicly. That is the normal process that's done by this administration, is it not?
Through the mayor, yes, I believe so.
Thank you, CO Panasic. Councillor Race.
Mr. Mayor, I think this is what Councillor Magoon was referring to, but if it's a capital project that has to be tendered, or, we're going to be taking bids, we don't put the cost of the capital project there on the budget sheet, do we? Because then the people who are bidding on that would see it.
CO Panasic.
Through the mayor, no, that's not correct. We do, and we do include the cost of the projects.
Alrighty. Thanks.
Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor.
Will we be making any decisions in the next 2 days? Or is it just an information session?
Ms. Bourbeau.
Our role in the workshop is to dive into that. There may be some want to make some opening in the workshop that provides the preliminary direction on how this thing down. We have for the public that are running about 14 as we follow workshop will go during information session. We'll get everything that's happening will be format and not so much a vision for moving forward, but we're talking about conversation forward. Our hope in doing that is that for women
Follow up.
Well, just that we will be making at least consensus decisions, so that makes it important to make it public, because that gives people the opportunity to talk to me, because what I've noticed is that once you make a consensus decision, yes, not always the case, but it's relatively hard to take it back later on in the process. So people to have a chance early on, and for me to have the opportunity to go talk to people about what they'd like to see, even though it's only a couple of days, I think that's valuable. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Marinus. And the only point I wanted to make towards that is I can recall many instances where consensus decisions have been put forward through the budget process that have been reversed later after public feedback or second thought or whatever. It's important to remember the budget process is exactly that. It's a process. It's a whole series of meetings where, and I can't stress this enough. The documents, in my experience in the 8 or so years I've been doing this, the document we get at the workshop isn't even remotely similar to the final budget document that we wind up with 3 months later. So again, I still think it's premature, and I don't think it would be. I'm not sure it's the best course of action to take, and if it is, I really stress that it be taken with a huge grain of salt, because it is not at all reflective of what the final budget document's going to look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to make the 2025 budget workshop documents publicly available on the Town of Hinton website prior to the budget workshop on November 6th and 7th. Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? Councillors Taylor, Race, and Magoon in favor. All opposed? And the motion is defeated 4-3. Do we have anything else for reporting this evening, Council? Seeing nothing, we'll request a motion to move into closed. Councillor Haas.
To make the motion to move into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, the motion on the floor is that council move into closed session. Any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. All in favor? The motion is carried unanimously. We are in closed session. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, we're going to take 5. Use the washrooms.